Welcome to Scanner School session number 48. This is our 2018 holiday season Scanner Radio Buyer's Guide.
Welcome to the Scanner School, a podcast dedicated to the scanner radio hobby. Class is about to begin. Here is your host, Phil Lichtenberger.
So welcome to Scanner School. My name is Phil Lichtenberger. My amateur radio call sign is W2LIE, and this is Scanner School, a podcast where we teach you everything that you need to know about the scanner radio hobby. So today we're going to go over a couple of scanner radios that I would suggest anybody looking to upgrade or maybe get their first scanner. Maybe you're a relative or you're going to gift a scanner to somebody and you're just wanting to know what it is you should buy. So we got a couple suggestions that go on coming up in the podcast. Before I really get into that, I just want to thank our Patreon supporters. Mark Beebe, Kenneth Fowler, MT Bono, James Felling, William Arcand, and Ken Newberry. Thank you all so much for your continued support and being a Patreon supporter. Now, again, you can support the podcast by going to scannerschool.com/support, and we have several ways you can help support the podcast, being Patreon being one of them, a one-time PayPal donation, or if you're a Amazon shopper, you can make a purchase on Amazon and have it count. We make a commission on that as well. If you go to scannerschool.com/support, it's a great way to help support the podcast without it costing you a dime. So again, scannerschool.com/support. And again, too, if you have any scanner radio related questions, we would like to help you. So if you go to scannerschool.com/ask, you can submit your questions, and we're going to answer another round of questions in about 2 weeks here. So again, go to scannerschool.com/ask, and you can also record your own message by going and click on the Speak Pipe link, and we'll get that question into the next Ask session, again, about 2 weeks from now, if you can jump on getting that Speak Pipe. Or if you live in the States and you want to leave us a traditional voicemail, you could do so by going to 516-308-2885. All right. So without further delay, let's go through our 2018 Holiday Scanner Radio Buyer's Guide. Now, I've tiered this up a little bit. We'll start at the very bottom with the basic analog, no frills scanners, and we'll work our way all the way up to the creme de la creme. And, we'll have a little journey. We'll go through, the upgrade process and all that stuff. So the very first scanner tier we're going to look at are the basic scanners, the analog only, no trunking type of scanner radio. And these are broken down basically, like I said, they don't do anything special. They're just analog only radios. And my pick for this category here is the Uniden BC125 AT. Now, it's a U.S. model number. If you're in the UK, you're looking for the UBC 125 XLT. And for those of you who listen to us from Australia, good day. It's the UBC 126 AT. Now, I picked this model as the entry-level scanner because it's a 500-channel scanner. It supports alpha tags, and it does support PL and DPL. It's also computer programmable, which makes it really easy to program. And again, if you're looking for a piece of software to program up this radio, I recommend Butel's ARC 125, and you can download that. Our affiliate link for that is scannerschool.com/Butel. And if you use that link, it'll forward you right to the Butel website, and you can purchase the ARC 125 software for this model for I think about $30 US, if I'm not mistaken. But just so we understand why I picked this one versus other model numbers out there, you also have like the Uniden BC75 XLT, the 95 XLT. Over in the UK, you got the UBC 75 XLT. Those are 300 channel versions of this radio. Again, we'll look at a 500 channel one for the BC 125 AT. And also the Whistler WS 1010. It's only a 200 channel radio, and it's definitely bigger than Uniden counterparts. So that's why I'm really going with the BC 125 AT as an entry-level scanner. Okay, so let's talk about our entry-level trunking scanners now. These are scanner radios that support not only analog conventional, but also Motorola Type 2, Type 1, EDAX, and LTR. So if you did not need a digital scanner, but you still needed something that did Motorola EDAX LTR, you are looking at something like the Uniden BCT15X. It's really the only player now in this tier. Uniden decided to scrap the the BC346 XTC, and Whistler now is either a analog only, no trunking, or a full P25 scanner. So the only thing in this tier right now is the BCT15X. Now this is about $150 US dollars, and it's a really great scanner radio. And I've had one for years. It was a nice upgrade from the BCT15, and it's a really, really great scanner, real workhorse at this price point. So again, if you don't need anything that's doing P25 and you have $150 that you want to spend on a scanner, this is a really nice mobile desktop unit to get yourself into. And unfortunately, it's the only one that fits in this tier at this point. There's no other alternatives unless you're going to go look at the used market. So this was a very easy pick for me, was going with the Uniden the BCT 15X. Now, again, we'll have links to these radios in the show notes at scannerschool.com/session48. We'll also have links as to where you can purchase these model numbers as well in the show notes. So be sure, if you're looking at making one purchase of any of these scanners, you go to the session notes, and we'll have affiliate links on there. So it means if you click on those links, we'll earn a small commission on the referral for those as well. All right, so now we're jumping up the tiers, and we're going into P25. So P25 is, it's digital trunking. And if you want to know more about P25, you can listen again, go back, listen to Scanner School sessions 14, 15, and 16. In there, we did an introduction on P25, the difference between phase 1, phase 2. And I think we also did simulcast in that one as well. So there's a couple of scanners that we're already going to rule out. At this price point, I really think that you should be investing in a phase 2 capable P25 scanner. Any systems that are being deployed now, that are being built or will be built in the future for P25 must support phase 2. At least that's the way it is here in the United States. So because of that, I will not recommend any phase 1 type scanners. Now, if you live in an area like where I live in, and my county is a phase 1 system, and I don't believe they have any plans to deploy phase 2, you could stick with a phase 1 scanner. But again, my recommendation is for the price point of these scanners, and there's no real cost difference from phase 1 to phase 2, go with the phase 2. So because I'm recommending phase 2 at this price point, that rules out the Whistler WS1065 and the WS1040. Those are Whistler's P25 scanners, and they only do phase 1. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love my WS1065. It's a gorgeous radio, and it's perfect at what it does when it comes to phase 1 monitoring. The audio out on it is nice and bassy, and it fills up a room. Love the way that scanner sounds, and I like the dark, really dark black front panel on it. I think it's a really sharp looking radio. The audio on it's great. The dials on it feel good. Programming on that scanner is very simple, especially with Butel's, I believe it's the ARC 500 software. Now again, scannerschool.com/Butel. It's definitely easier, in my opinion, to program up than some of the Uniden scanners. But again, because it's only a phase 1 P25 supported radio, both the handheld, the WS1040, and the mobile, the WS1065, I can't recommend it for my 2018 buyer's guide. What I would recommend, though, is the Uniden BCD 325 P2 and the mobile counterpart, the BCD 996 P2. Now, the BCD 325 P2 is the same size and form factor of the analog radio that I recommended, the BCT 125 AT. So the BCD 325 P2, as the name suggests at the end, P2 is for phase 2. This is now a USB, a true USB radio. You no longer need that USB 1 cable to convert that proprietary USB connection or that serial connection on the side of the radio and that funny connector that I always seem to break. So it's straight USB. It charges off the USB. One thing to remember, though, is that you can't use the scanner and charge at the same time. It's either on or it's off and on charge. The radio is great. It does support P25 Phase 1, Phase 2, X2 TDMA, EDAX, LTR, Type 2. And if you pay for the upgrades, you can get NXDN and DMR and Pro Voice. I believe it's just DMR and Pro Voice on these scanners. They will support the unit IDs, 25,000 memories on it, DCS, CTCS, SD coding, NAC, close call, GPS, fire tone outs. For those of you in Australia, I'm going to suggest the UBCD 325P2, which is pretty much the exact same radio, except I believe it has the Australian band plan in there. I know there's a couple differences between where you guys place your CB and whatnot. So that is what I would recommend when it comes to a P25 Phase 2 trunking scanner. Okay, so let's now start getting into the advanced digital trunking radios. This is now we start jumping up a tier. So in the entry-level advanced digital trunk radios, I would recommend the Whistler TRX1 or the TRX2. Now, full disclosure here, I just got my Whistler TRX1 a few weeks ago, if not maybe a month ago. And it has been on my wish list, kind of one of these radios that, I was kind of dreading buying because I really am part of the Uniden camp, though I do have Whistler radios. This one's a bit pricey. This one's about $450 US on the new market. I was looking up to find one on eBay for less than that, and it was brand new in the box. I mean, I scored on this radio. But I am struggling, though, to get over the learning curve in programming this one. I find this one to be a little bit of a pain for me to program, but I honestly know that just means I need time in front of the radio and in front of the Windows software in order to understand exactly how it works. The one drawback, though, on the Whistler TRX1 and TRX2 and a lot of the Whistler radios that operate with this easy scan protocol is that their Whistler is pretty tight-lipped on the programming language of this scanner, so there's no third-party software. You can't go out there and get something like Butel software or FreeScan or even ProScan. So that does mean you have to learn how to use the EasyScan software. So I'm recommending this one because it does support out of the box Motorola Type P25 Phase 1, Phase 2. It also supports out of the box NXDN, DMR, Hytera XPT. There are no upgrade fees when it comes to this radio, so you know that when you buy the radio, when you buy it, it's going to come fully featured the way that you expect it to. There's no actual options or add-ons that you can purchase to this radio to bring it up to what it is you expect, like the Uniden counterparts at this price tier. This radio works off the radio reference database, so you don't have to worry about, making your own frequency lists. You can put your zip code in, you can put your state or your county, and it can self-program, although I strongly recommend getting yourself used to using the software and making your own custom favorites list. You'll enjoy the radio a whole lot more when you're able to fine-tune it using the built-in software. Plus, you'll want to plug in the software and update the DSP or the digital signal processor, and also the firmware and the radio reference database that is built into the radio itself. All these radios, too, at the advanced digital trunking tier that we're talking about right now, usually all include a micro SD card, and that's where the Uniden, the radio reference database is held on, whether it be on Whistler or on the Uniden platform. They all seem to be running everything straight off the micro SD card. You can buy a larger micro SD card, which will allow you to have more recording space available. And in the case of the Whistler TRX1 and TRX2, there's a virtual scanner. So you can actually create different memory profiles in this scanner and save them as virtual scanners. And then you can then swap out the virtual scanner. So let's say, I have a New York profile, which is where I live, and I have the radio set up for when I'm home. Maybe I'm a snowbird and I fly down to Florida. I mean, I'm not at that point yet. I have probably another 25 years or so before I actually become a snowbird myself. But if I was down in Florida, I can then bring up my Florida profile, and it would overwrite the existing database or the existing profile on the computer with the backup profile, the virtual scanner, for my Florida profile. And then when I got back home to New York, I just load up the New York virtual folder. It will then reprogram the radio on the fly, and I would have my New York profile in the scanner. So it makes it really nice and easy to keep multiple profiles in the scanner. This is something that GRE and Radio Shack was really good at, and I'm glad to see that Whistler is also supporting the virtual scanners built into their product line. Now, going on from here, this is the end of the road for me for Whistler. We're going to talk about Uniden from here on out. The Uniden Home Patrol 2 is really a stripped-down version of the BCD 436 HP or the 536. It does not have any upgrade past the DMR, Motor Turbo, NXDN, or Pro Voice. And in order to gain some of the extra features that are already built into the BCD 436 or the 536, it does require a paid upgrade to the Home Patrol Extreme upgrade. So for that reason alone, I'm going to say that while the HP2 might be a nice tabletop unit for somebody who needs, P25 Phase 2 and just wants something they can just take out of the box and program, okay, that's fine. But for a more advanced user, I'm recommending that you go with the BCD 436 HP and the BCD 536 HP. The BCD 436 HP is a nice handheld radio. The mobile version is the 536. So I've had both the 436 and the 536 since Uniden released them in 2013. And again, this is also built on the Home Patrol platform, which means that it has the radio reference database saved on an SD card, and you can bring it up and you can program these scanners on zip code. But I strongly recommend you use Uniden Sentinel and program it up using the software and build yourself custom favorites list. You'll enjoy the radio a whole lot more when you set it up the favorites list as opposed to zip code programming. Now, in typical Uniden fashion, and I know a lot of people are really bummed out about this. I mean, they vent about it all the time. You need to pay for NXDN, DMR, and Pro Voice. But you only have to pay for these if you need them. So if you don't need NXDN, DMR, or Moto Turbo, or Pro Voice, then there's no extra upgrade costs for you. So my BCD 436 HP has become my go-to scanner. I have mine completely loaded up. I've paid it for the DMR and XDN upgrades. I did not pay for Pro Voice because there's no Pro Voice in my neighborhood. But I find that I'm grabbing that radio more than I'm grabbing any other radio that I own when I need a radio to carry around with me. So that radio has become my big favorite right now. The BCD 536 HP is about $100 more. It includes Wi-Fi, and that has become a big frustration point for a ton of Uniden fans because Uniden promised when this radio came out that there would be a piece of software called Siren. And Siren would allow you to use your scanner from your smartphone or your tablet. And unfortunately, Uniden could never really get the bugs out of that system, and they only released an iOS version of Siren. They left the Android users out to dry. So a lot of people really are upset with Uniden, and they're telling Uniden that they're upset with their pocketbook. Either they're returning the units, they've been selling them, or they've been refusing to buy anything new from Uniden. So, this does happen from time to time where manufacturers promise a little bit more than they can, and it does take them time to get up to where they've promised. So remember, if you're looking to buy the 536 and you have an Android device, you're not going to be able to use the Siren app. Me, personally, I've never used the Siren app. I think I do have it loaded on my smartphone, but I've never actually plugged it into the scanner. I have, though, used the Wi-Fi adapter when I've been using that with ProScan because it saves me from having to plug in a serial line and a line input for the audio. I can run the virtual scanner and record the sound right over the Wi-Fi. So I do enjoy using the Wi-Fi connectivity on the 536 for that reason. So now if you're over in Europe, you're looking for the UBC D 3600 XLT. And from what I'm reading, that does include NXDN out of the box. Now, again, we're going to have links to all of these radios for both ScannerMaster and Amazon in the session notes at scannerschool.com/session48. All right, so now let's switch to something a little bit different here. Something that I really haven't talked about too much yet, but we're going to get into that in future sessions. USB dongles, SDR dongles. These are now really starting to become very popular because the price point is right on them, and they are really starting to evolve into a point where anybody can jump into them without having to finesse them too much. These are really cool devices. I've been playing around with them for a couple of years. I've got a box full of these things, the old T820 dongles, and also a little mini I forget the name, AirSpy. I got an AirSpy unit as well, which is really, really cool. But the new ones I just purchased, I actually just picked up. If you listen to last week's podcast, I talked about them when I talked about when I went out on a cruise and I had a pair of these in my laptop bag. These are the Nuelec USB dongles. They're about $30 a pop from Amazon, and I bought them as a complete kit. So the kit comes with a mag mount. It comes with 3 different antennas. These SDR dongles, they have an SMA connector on them, which is really great to have. The previous dongles I had, they had plastic casings on them. They were wide. They had MCX adapters on them, which made them like you had to have a pigtail with SMA on it or BNC to really make them use. The plastic didn't dissipate the heat good enough, and they were too wide to really stack or put side by side in many computers because the spacing wasn't there in USB. So you end up buying a special either a pigtail, or you had to have a USB hub that allowed you to space them out properly. But these Nuelecs, these are nice. They're narrow. They have aluminum enclosures on it, so they do get hot. They dissipate all the heat. There's also no frequency drift. At least the ones I have, they are rock solid, dead on frequency. The earlier ones I had, they had to drift. I had to put a correction factor in them. They were work to set up. They weren't exactly the easiest thing in the world. The Nuelecs that I purchased come with a business card in there. You follow the directions directly on that card, that quick start guide. It walks you through how to install the software, how to get the drivers installed, and you're up and running with software in a matter of minutes. These are a huge, huge improvements from when I was first playing around with the old T820 dongles and even over my original series AirSpy. I can't recommend these enough, and we're going to talk about these in a lot more detail come 2019. Finally, we're going to talk about the newest kid on the block, the Uniden SDS100. Now, this is Uniden's newest scanners, and at the time of this recording, since it's still very, very new, it is retailing for $650. But again, this is Uniden's brand new radio. I remember when the 536 came out, it was $599. So this isn't too far off the mark from when that radio was the top of the line. It's only $50 more than that. And you got to remember, we're talking 2013, 2018, right? A little bit of inflation going on here. And that's the point I want to drive home here. People are saying it's $650. That's ridiculous. But you got to remember, when the new scanners came out, they were $200 or they were $150. You got to remember the time frame that you were in. At that time, when a new scanner came out, it was only $100, $200. But you weren't bringing home as much as you're bringing home now. Things changed. Pricing points changed. Inflation's changed in the last 20, 30 years in scanning. So when that radio cost you $200 20 years ago, I mean, I'm not doing the math here, but you're close to where this radio is right now. You're at the top tier, right? And yes, these are expensive radios, but when you compare apples to apples here, you can't say, well, this was a $650 radio and the other one was $250. You got to remember, when you bought it back then, that was a lot of money for the day. And $650 is a lot of money today. I mean, I'm not saying it isn't. But Uniden has the right to price the radio here because it is worth more. It does more than the 536 HP does, especially when it came out. It doesn't support Wi-Fi, but it does have an IQ scanner in it, which no other scanner radio does. It has a color display, which no other scanner radio right now has, and it's like the newest thing. So they're going to charge you more money because it is relatively new. So again, it has an IQ receiver in it, which means it works phenomenal in simulcasting areas. Okay, now if you want to know more about simulcast, you can take a listen to scannerschool.com/session18. And also I have a initial review of the SDS100 at session 25. So just like the BCD 436 HP and the 536 HP, you would need to use Uniden Sentinel software to program the radio. Now, the beauty is, if you already own the 436 or the 536, you can take that profile and dump it right into the SDS100. So there isn't really any learning curve when it comes to programming this radio. Now, if you want NXDN and DMR and Pro Voice, yes, you have to pay for the upgrades. Now, all of a sudden, if you need all three, this now jacks your price up another $150 or so, which I know that's a tough nut to crack, especially for this type of radio. But you don't need to buy these right out of the box. All right, get a hold of learning how to use the radio. So again, the Uniden SDS100 has an IQ scanner, which works really well with simulcast environments. But if you want to try something different, like I said, I got those new Elect devices, and they work just as well in simulcast because they're using software to help put the signal back together again. Now, if you want to see my initial reaction to the SDS100, besides listening to it on a podcast, I did do a Facebook live session on the unboxing of the SDS100, and I upload that video to YouTube. Now, I know that video did not translate well to YouTube because it was made for Facebook. But if you want to see me answer a few questions and you want to see my initial reactions as I'm unboxing it, you can also take a look at that on my YouTube channel at scannerschool.com/YouTube. So again, I want to say that if you're looking at buying any of these scanners and you want to do us a favor, you can go to scannerschool.com/session48. We have links to all of these scanners. We also have them in the show notes, so you can make a purchase and help support Scanner School, and it comes at no additional cost to you. It's a great way to say thank you, Phil, for putting this guide together. All right, so I have one final radio here that I'm going to bring up. It's the Unication G5. Now, this is a pager. It's not a scanner, but it can scan. A lot of people have been buying the Unication G4 and the G5 because it does really, really, really well in simulcast. It's a P25 pager that now includes Phase 2, so that's no longer a firmware upgrade. And right now, I'm recommending the G5 because until December 21st, 2018, it's $100 off, which makes it the same price as the G4. The difference between the G4 and the G5 is the G4 only does 800 megahertz. The G5 adds VHF or UHF to the 700, 800. So it's a really, really great pager that does operate as a scanner. Now, again, if you buy the UHF version, you're not going to get low band, you're not going to get VHF. Vice versa, you buy VHF, you're not going to get UHF, you're not going to get low band. All right? So you got to remember this when you're buying the pager. It's also not field programmable. It does require to use the software. But again, it's a really great pager. And personally, me here, because I am also a Unication dealer, I am selling a ton of these Unication G5 products. So if you're interested in a Unication G5, you can purchase them at eastcoastpagers.com. Now, I know a lot of you who are fans of the podcast were waiting for this. Yes, this podcast is sponsored by East Coast Pagers, and East Coast Pagers is a Unication dealer, and we serve the U.S. market. So if you're looking to buy a Unication G1, G4, or G5, or the Swiss phone as quad voice, contact us at East Coast Pagers. Now, again, these pages are on sale until December 21st, 2018. And if you're on our mailing list, we'll also pass out something good for you for Black Friday for those of you who are listening to us before Black Friday begins. Now, if you're one of those early listeners too, don't forget we're giving away a Unication G1. Just go to eastcoastpagers.com/contest to enter to win a Unication G1. All right, guys, that is it for this week. This is our 2018 Scanner Radio Buyer's Guide. Next week, we're going to talk about some accessories, some stocking stuffers, some extras that you can give the Scanner Radio listener, or maybe recommend that somebody buy for you if you are a Scanner Radio listener. So this will be kind of the same as what we're doing this week. We're going to have some ideas and suggestions for that for the holiday time 2018. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss next week's session. You can do so at scannerschool.com/subscribe. Also, don't forget all the show notes, all the links, all the radios, everything we talked about today can be found online at scannerschool.com/session48. All right, guys. We'll catch you next Tuesday. I want to say thank you very much. I hope that those of you in the United States have a very, very great Thanksgiving. Don't go into a turkey coma. And Black Friday, Cyber Monday, take a look at the Facebook group and the Twitter account for Scanner School. If I find anything on sale for Black Friday, I'm going to let you know. And if you find anything on sale for Black Friday, please let me know and I will share it with the Scanner School community. So scannerschool.com/Facebook group, scannerschool.com/Twitter. That's where I will be passing along all the information that I find in all of the Scanner Radio related Black Friday deals. All right, guys. Catch you all next Tuesday, 73. My name is Phil Lichtenberger. This is Scanner School, a podcast where we teach you everything you need to know about the scanner radio hobby. 73, everyone. Talk to you all next week.
Thanks for listening to the Scanner School podcast. Be sure to visit www.scannerschool.com to access the show notes and bonus content.